What's up, everybody? That's Walker. That's Mo. I'm Jeff, and we're here to talk about a fantastic Week 7 in college football. We talk about the biggest winners, the biggest losers, and what we learned. Here we go. Thanks again for joining us, everybody. It's Jeff Needs Sports. You can find it anywhere you get your podcasts, and you can check me out on Twitter, check me out on Facebook. We'd love to hear from you. And gentlemen, how are you this evening?
Good, just trying to get to next Saturday. We just finished the last one, and let's get to the next one and get it fired up again.
Yeah. So Mo from Up in Flames, what's up?
What's up, man? I mean, hey, crazy, crazy weekend. I guess you could say, lived up to the hype. I think that's just how I look at it. Is this weekend lived up to the hype? Every game that we expected to be great was great outside of Michigan and Penn State. Other than that, every game lived up to the hype and was down to the wire, make you on the edge of your seat wanting to watch an entertaining game. So, I mean, this weekend is why I love college football.
Yeah, we'll do some. Well, you know what? I'll even put that up there since I've got it up here. We'll go ahead and put our knee jerks up there real quick about because we talked about it last week. You guys talked about it on your show. I talked about it on my show. One of a truly great schedule in college football last week. So just some knee jerk reactions. I'll give you mine too. My thought was this is why, like, whatever age I might have watched a weekend like this, when I was a kid or young adult or whenever it was this big, this is literally one of the reasons, like, I love the entirety of college football, not just my team, not just a local team. This is why I just love the sport of college football, was weekends like we just had, to where, like, for instance, I watched it at a party. We had a huge seafood boil, big party. People were there. And then it just kind of congregated. Like, I'm watching the game because everybody knows I'm going to watch the game. That's Jeff. And then, another person comes up and they're like, whoa, Alabama, Tennessee, huh? And then the next person comes up, then the next person. The next thing you know, you've got 5 or 6 people that don't normally watch a game together. You're all having conversations. You're all throwing out reactions. You all got opinions. And so then you spend like 20 to 30, maybe an hour watching the game, but also like just discussing like things that happen. You observe a play, you observe a big block on the outside. So it was just a great viewing experience. It was a great time. It was a great weekend of college football. Walker, what was your big takeaway from the weekend?
Oh God, I mean, so many.
Not what you learned. We don't want to spoil that.
Oh no, yeah, no, we won't do that. We won't go into like the sourpuss attitude I had walking out of Ole Miss's stadium on Saturday, where I was just like, "That's shit. We should have won by a lot more than we did."
Hey, you don't have to tell us anything.
No, I mean, I think knee jerk wise, I mean, you come away and you just like, I think consensus, you have to be like, Tennessee is the best team in the country right now.
It's a fair statement.
You can't really argue. I mean, you can have a case for someone else, but you can't definitively be like, nah, this team has a better resume, like, or this team has performed better. Like, they've gone to Death Valley and played LSU and just absolutely beat the piss out of them. They came home and played Alabama, and I mean, like, I don't want to say controlled start to finish, but they started hot and then they held on at the end and found a way to make the winning plays and win those games, which is ultimately what matters. So all they've done is impress to this point. They beat a decent Pitt team on the road. Like, I mean, they've got a bunch of good wins. I think knee jerk wise, you have to be like, yeah, I mean, that's the best team in the country right now.
We'll just roll that into biggest winners, because Tennessee is definitely, I think Tennessee's on our list of biggest winners. So we might as well cover the elephant in the room here. Unless you guys want to talk about my best disc golf tournament to date, because me and my partner Bo did really well Saturday. It was a great fall day in Ohio. We finished 8 down in the tournament. We didn't win it, but by far we had the best showing, especially in our age group. So we could talk about that, or we could talk about college football. It's up to you guys. But no, I think we all agree Tennessee is one of the biggest winners. That was and another, I'll throw this in for another one of my biggest winners. It was the viewers that got to watch Tennessee Alabama game. Like, whether you watched it to hate on Alabama, whether you love Tennessee, whether you genuinely like Alabama, however you watched it as a casual viewer, as an anti-SEC fan, as a pro, like, it doesn't matter. It had something for everybody. Everybody could take away either some sort of thrill or some sort of disappointment from that game. I thought it was great. I thought both teams showed up. I absolutely loved it. And Walker, I like what you said. As of right now, Tennessee has the argument that they should be number one in the nation until proven otherwise. Mo, what'd you think of the game Saturday?
The Tennessee Alabama game was.
Yeah.
Listen, I was in my house singing "Good Old Rocky Top." Okay, Alabama so much. Them losing that game. Oh man, it was amazing. It was a great game too, though. I love the fact that it lived up to the hype. If you weren't a Hendon Hooker believer before, I guess that's the game that makes you a believer now. As far as what you think he'll do in the NFL, like I always say, that's not what I kept. But like the man's as right now, he's a great college quarterback. He's not.
Yeah, I don't care about the NFL stuff.
Yeah, like he's a great college quarterback. He has an opportunity in the next coming weeks to kind of put a stamp on a legitimate Heisman campaign, which prior to that game was basically CJ Stroud and everybody else. And that everybody else was so far away that it probably wasn't even close. But for him to play the way he did, but like I said, it's just for me watching that game is like that's everything you want in a college football game. Like you couldn't ask for a better ending, a better comeback for Bama to make it a game, a better, like every question that you needed from pretty much everybody was answered. Like Bama comes back, takes the lead. How does Hendon Hooker, how does he respond? How does Tennessee respond? Bryce Young, can he bring his team back and can Nick Saban coach him back into it after a couple mental errors? Like, yes, they lost because when two great teams play, somebody has to win, somebody has to lose, but I mean, it's not a knock on Alabama to me. I mean, I think they played arguably the best team in the country and lost in a very close fashion. And I think if they see each other again in the SEC championship, it could be the same type of game with Alabama coming on the other side of that this time. Or maybe Alabama blows the doors off of them because, how Nick Saban gets bulletin board material and we're underdogs and this and that. So, but yeah, it was just a great game overall.
Yeah, Walker. I'm gonna read you some stats real quick, Walker. Then I'm gonna let you go because you're in the heart of SEC country. You're in tune with it. Bryce Young, 455 yards and 2 touchdowns, and then Hooker. I feel like this is a mistake. It's 385 yards and 5 touchdowns. What a display from those two guys.
I was gonna say on the winners list we can put Bryce Young's pocketbook.
I actually put Bryce Young on my winners list, so let's have the discussion. I know the knee jerk is that it's Hendon Hooker in Tennessee, and it should be lived up to it. I thought Bryce Young had a lot of questions going into it, based on it's mostly for his future, but just based on his size. He was coming off the injury. He missed a week, almost cost him a win at A&M. We can all admit that. And I thought he looked the part. He was unflappable. He played great. He lost the game. He didn't play as good as Hooker. Like I just want to, he was slightly behind, but I thought he did everything he wanted to do. And if you had any questions about Bryce Young going into that, his size is what it is. I don't know what to tell you as an NFL scout, what you do about his size. The size of his brain, the size of his heart, and everything else is he's killing it. I was very impressed with Bryce Young and how he handled himself. And based on the game, Alabama is still in pretty good shape.
Yeah, I think so, but I think you have to have a serious conversation about him at some point. You can argue that Quinn Ewers doesn't go down; they lose at Texas. They lose.
I feel that way.
Yeah, and they lose at Tennessee. They were 2 yards from losing to Texas A&M. This is a team that's been in a lot of 50-50 contests now, and at some point you have to ask if that's just going to be what it is. We also haven't had the conversation a lot yet, but can we talk about how Saban just completely bungled the end of the game, and that's the reason Tennessee won in regulation?
I do want to talk about that.
Your only job as a head coach in that spot, and they had 2 timeouts left, is to make sure that your opponent does not get the ball back with a chance to win the game in regulation. It is, I am going to win the game right here, or we're going to remain tied and we are going to go to overtime. Those are the only 2 options. He decided to throw the ball on 3 or 4 consecutive downs. Didn't run the ball, didn't use the timeouts, kicked a 50-yard field goal with a kicker who had not made a kick in what it felt like forever. He struggled against A&M too. And then you leave the ball to Hendon Hooker, who has lit you up all night, and give him time and timeouts with a chance to do something. That's inexcusable. I thought the way that he handled the end of the game was inexcusable. It's mistakes that you don't see from an Alabama team. They have not yet defensively proven to me that they're good on that side of the football. Everybody that's had a chance to torch them in the secondary has been able to do it. Haynes King, who was inept until he played Alabama, went to Tuscaloosa and was able to move the ball in that secondary. There's a lot of questions there that they have to answer, and I just thought it was very atypical Bama, and I was wrong. Like, I thought they were going in there and it was going to be statement, typical Alabama. Things come together, they get it right, and they move and they go. And that was not it. Like, I mean, we're at the point now where you have to ask serious questions about that team.
Yeah, and you said it best with the end of the game, and you can ask anybody that was around me. As soon as Alabama lined up for the field goal, I said Tennessee just won this game. Like I was like we're all three sitting here like this game's over, and then not for Alabama. Like that kick wasn't going to go through. Why do you do that? It was huge mistakes. Totally agree. Well said. Final thoughts on the Alabama game, Mo, and then we'll take your next winner.
It was a great game. I don't know.
Hey, there you go.
It was everything I wanted and more. I wouldn't have been able to predict the way it went. It was a great game. Like, just being a deep college football fan and knowing that I was looking forward to this weekend where I don't have the stress of Ohio State playing and I get to just genuinely enjoy all these great matchups. And I did. Yeah, I couldn't ask. That was an instant classic. I don't know if they do instant classics anymore, but that was an instant classic.
I agree.
Yeah.
Who's your next winner or one of your winners?
I would say Utah, which is like, I guess as a 2-loss team, like, why this late into the season are we considering a 2-loss team a winner? But it's kind of because, like, a lot of people seem like this was the game that USC really had marked down on their calendar as far as, like, if we get through this,
we
probably can finish undefeated and make a playoff. And even talking to USC fans, it was like, Utah's the test that we're looking at. Obviously, nobody thought UCLA was going to be as good as they are, but even still, I think USC felt like, okay, we'll play UCLA. It's a home game for us regardless. That'll be our environment no matter where it's at. And so for Utah to go in there and they were favored it by Vegas. So there were a lot of people that felt like it was a bad matchup for USC, but for them winning that game the way they won it, they didn't play great defensively. And that was kind of where we thought they would lean on USC. I didn't think USC would score 40 plus points on a Utah, but to the fact that you kind of took away them always having to run the ball and Cam Rising had to step up and play great in that game to win that game. And he did. I think they got to be one of the bigger winners because essentially they knocked off a USC and now, like, the ball's not in USC's court. Like, they could win out, but they got some games ahead of them. There's some matchups or whatever. So, like, being a 1-loss team this early, like, essentially the ball's probably not in your court or you can't lose another game. And so for Utah to kind of be a spoiler but still be taken serious nationally, I think was like I think that was big for the Pac-12 as a whole. So I think Utah winning that game was actually big for the Pac-12 because it's still very close and the division can be had by 4 different teams right now.
Yeah, Walker, I'll let you go here in a second. I'll read you a couple more stats here. Caleb Williams, 381 yards and 5 touchdowns. Cameron Rising, 415 yards, 2 touchdowns. Another 60 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. What a game that was! And I had Cam Rising, and I also had on my winners. Then we'll take all your thoughts on my winners. I actually had the 2-loss teams. I thought because of 6 undefeated teams going down, I think teams like Texas and Utah, it gave them a heartbeat. So I agree with Mo. Great win for Utah.
Yeah, I mean, right there. But I think the one thing that, like, I want to acknowledge is just the absolute emotional magnitude of that win for that program with everything that they did and coming into that night. With the helmets and, honoring them honoring their past players before the game. And, it's just one of those moments that just kind of reminds you how great this sport is. And you have to applaud Kyle Whittingham, because he, quite frankly, put his nuts on the table and told his players that he believed in them. And he said, go get me 3 yards and let's win this football game. And, and it paid off. Like, he trusted his guys. He went, they won the game. And it paid off. And Dalton Kincaid was phenomenal. The tight end. I mean, 16 targets, 16 catches, like
234 yards.
Carried him off the field injured for him to come back in 2 plays later on, like 3rd and 9 and convert a 3rd and 9 and keep a drive going. And then, like, just after the game, I mean, you could just tell what it meant, like how important it was to that program, how important it was to that team to win on that night, with everything that was going on there. It was really cool. I thought we answered a lot of questions about both teams. Like, I think that everybody kind of assumed that Utah, if they were going to win the game, it was going to be because they lined up and ran the ball and were able to lean on USC. I thought USC answered questions about their line play. I mean, their offensive line was really phenomenal for most of the night. Utah had to bring a lot of exotic pressure to get to Caleb Williams. And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. And then, I thought that Cameron Rising was phenomenal. I think that if you told people that Utah wasn't able to run the ball, you would have assumed they got blown out, but they didn't. He stepped up to the plate and played probably the best game of his career, which is just another cool thing because, that kid threw an interception on the 5-yard line in week 1 going in to beat Florida. And, to come back and do this in your next big game it's awesome to watch. So, I mean, I was a noted Utah guy, coming into this week, was really pulling for Utah, wanted them to win the game. Just kind of a sigh of relief and just lots of joy for that program. I was really excited for them.
Yeah, it was one of those to, even though I had picked USC, by the time it was over, I was just like, you guys play this out. This is beyond a pick or pride or any of that stuff. This is a great game. I'm enjoying it. I just love high level football, and this will lead up to another one of my losers in the losers category here in a little bit. I'm going to throw out. I'll throw out real quick another winner, just because every time they win's a win. Syracuse, good win over a good team. I don't know what it is. I love when they win games in that awful stadium that they play in. There's something about it that I kind of like. It's almost like the field's not the right size, or they can't. I'm always worried they're going to throw the ball too high. I can't figure it out. It's like they're playing in some kind of barn. But I do feel good for the program. I don't think it lasts past this week, but if I'm a Syracuse fan, this is fun.
I got one more for you. We have to go here before we move to losers.
Oh no, we won't move to losers yet. No, I was just throwing out an easy winner there.
We got to go to we have to go to Fort Worth.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, let's do it. Let's just go backwards. I mean, there's not much more to say about Syracuse. It's a good story, and we all think it's going to end this week. But awesome for them, man. They're bowl eligible. They're having fun. I love the carry.
Do you follow the running back on Twitter where he tweets his own recap after every single game?
No, but I need to start.
Look it up. It's pretty cool. Where he's just I'm pretty pleased with the way we play, and then he tweets his own stats, and he's like, "Yeah, by the way, we're 6-0 now. We can't Google this stuff."
There's part of me that sometimes is slightly jealous of that fandom, because I've got one of the I'm a huge fan of one of the best teams in the country. They're 6-0, but I'm not having as much fun as Syracuse is, and my team is awesome. So I kind of admire that a little bit. So we'll go back around. We'll go to Walker, then we'll go back to Mo. Walker, you want to talk about the Horned Frogs?
Absolutely. I mean, we have to
tell me how wrong I was.
Oh my God!
By overtime.
We have not given this program nearly enough credit through 6 or 7 weeks, whatever they are now. They played a rivalry game against SMU on the road where their coach had to go in and play in the place that he had just left, and then won the game. And they have now played Oklahoma when they were ranked. Then they turned around and played someone else, Kansas, in a sellout crowd in Lawrence when they were ranked. Then they came home and played Oklahoma State and won that game. I mean, they've played now 4 consecutive big games, and every single time that they have to answer the bell, they've answered it. Down 30-16 in the second half against a program that's done nothing but win for the last few years. They didn't blink. They answered the bell, and they came back and won the football game. It took 2 overtimes, but they came back and won the football game. It's a program that's answered the bell every single time, and now they play Kansas State, which is going to be another ranked matchup this week. All they've done is answer the bell. I mean, we haven't talked about it enough, but that's a team that has maybe the second best resume in college football to Tennessee right now in terms of the profile of their wins and how they've done it. They've done nothing but impress to this point. And I feel like, everybody keeps waiting on, the slipper to fall off the foot with TCU, and all they do is keep winning. That's all they do. They keep scoring points. They score a bazillion points every single time.
That's the thing is we used to always think of them as this defense is Gary Patterson defense. And now they score. Dugan had another great game. He's had a consistent year. This team's consistent. This team's good. They're fast. They got players all over the field. I thought at halftime I was going to be able to text Walker and be like, I was right about Oklahoma State. At least I got something right. And then as it was happening, I'm like, oh man, here we go. And then when he got into overtime, I'm like, I don't know. And obviously I don't feel wrong about Oklahoma State, but
no,
I was.
I do think I thought we had them. I say we. God, I'm a Frogs fan now. They had him. I thought they had him on the 4th and 9, and then Sanders made another big throw, and I was like, God, he's flipped the bird to me like 8 times today, and then finally, they got like 3, like they got in double overtime, they got like I think back-to-back sacks or something, and it was like 4th and 25, and like all Gundy could do was kick the field goal, and I looked to the guy sitting next to me, and I was like, they got him. They got him. They're going to go score. And I don't think they ever put the ball in the air. Like, I think they just ran it straight down their throats.
Yeah, it was one of those. You could feel it coming.
Which is another thing is they're super physical, and they can pack that and bring that every single week. It's the type of thing that travels and makes
it carries. It absolutely. I totally agree. It does travel. Mo, what do you think about the Horned Frogs? And then we'll get another winner from you.
Another great game. Another reason why I love college football. Like, it's like, when you just get to sit there as a fan of the sport and not have to worry about an interest, and you're like, we cover this stuff. Yeah, I went out and I think I picked TCU. Well, I might have picked Oklahoma. No, I picked TCU. I rocked with Walker.
Yeah.
Picked TCU. But if Oklahoma State had won that game in the fashion of which it was played, I don't care about being wrong there. Yeah. Like, it was just one of those this game lived up to the hype. This was the weekend, and this was one of the matchups that, I had it on my other TV. But this was one of the matchups I was looking forward to. I think it was an afterthought because at the time that it was played, Bama and Tennessee, the whole world was watching Bama and Tennessee. So I don't think the whole world really got to see the show that was put on. But, I mean, it was another performance from 2 really good college quarterbacks. Like, it was day of the quarterbacks today because –
it sure was.
Because every team who had quarterbacks in the matchup, every quarterback played well. Like, literally played well. Some of them had the best games of their life, but in all these matchups, every quarterback played well. So, for me, and it's like, okay, TCU has Kansas State this week. Like, keep fighting. Like, they have an opportunity. They control their own destiny, but you just got to keep fighting, keep playing, keep answering the call, and you never know what TCU could do.
I don't know when they get to. That's exactly right. They got a decent schedule, and what's good about their schedule is they have good teams left on it, but good teams that they can beat. So that's what you want. You don't want great teams left. You want good teams that you have a chance to beat. And they've got that showdown with Texas in a few weeks.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think other than Kansas and Texas, I think the rest of it's really manageable. And Kansas State this week is in Fort Worth, so hopefully take care of business there.
They should feel good about where they're at.
No, I kept blowing up Mo's phone with like stuff from the TCU game, and he finally replied and was like, "Dude, I'm watching Bama, Tennessee." I was like, "Dude, you're missing a great game."
It was. I was doing the old flipping back just to watch as much as I could possibly watch. Of course, I had the people watching it with me, like, "How can you do this?" My wife's like, "Yeah, you get used to it." Mo, what other winners you got?
I don't really have, I guess, too many more winners. I mean, Michigan, I guess.
They're on my list. I think.
Yeah, I give them their props for blowing out Penn State and
that game wasn't even. That was a mauling.
Yeah, I think Penn State a little overrated, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, Michigan handled business. Could have been a close game. We could have been judging Michigan. I still think they got some questions to answer, but I mean, what team at this point doesn't have some concerns that you have for them going on into the future? This is around where we start talking about national championship contenders. And so you start picking out everybody on why they won't win a national championship or why they won't beat the premier team left on their schedule, whoever that may be. But I mean, and if I'm picking an individual player, Blake Corum, I mean, he played absolutely amazing.
Again,
I don't know if I think I ignited the argument but the debate in the chat because I've been saying for like the past 3 weeks, Blake Corum is the best running back in the country. Everybody's still on the whole like Bijan, and I get it. He'll probably be the more successful NFL back. I don't care right now on the college football field. What I'm seeing from Corum is next level. Now there's a bunch of elite guys though, like Zach Evans, like there's a lot of people that can be in that conversation. But what I'm watching from Blake Corum is like, I hate to say it, man, this dude is amazing. Like he goes for 70-some yards in the first half and then comes out at halftime and boom, 61. At that point, we knew the game was over. Like he comes out at halftime, they're only up 2, boom, 61-yard run to the crib, game's over. They've been physically dominating Penn State the whole first half. They just didn't capitalize on drives. He hits him. He punches him right in the mouth coming out of halftime. And that's when I said, this game's over. I don't even need to watch this.
And that's another one of those that carries over. Like that travels well, especially as the weather gets worse in the Midwest. Michigan is an extremely good football team. That was in my notes. Walker, any winners left?
Yeah, I thought the two key words said they were physically dominated. Like for me, even when Penn State kind of broke the couple plays and kind of got up early, to me there was never a doubt. Like, I mean, it was just like Michigan's the superior.
Yeah, they were dominating Penn State. It was a pick six.
At one point, at one point the first down count was 19-2. I was like, yeah, they're gonna be all right. I was like, they're gonna be all right. And sure enough, and it ended the way it should have. I just think that they're a really physically good football team. Like, I think the defense is going to travel. I think that they're always going to be good on that side of the ball, and the run game travels. And I think McCarthy has done enough to where you feel comfortable with him back there. Like, and I know that McNamara went to the playoffs last year, but I think Harbaugh got it right this year. Like, I think he took the right guy. I think it's clear that there's something to McCarthy that McNamara just couldn't bring to the table. And so I think that the hope for Michigan is that takes them to the next level. My last winner is the playoff expansion crowd, right? I mean, there's no question.
So I know where I'll start the losers now.
Yeah, we talked about. I sent the thing in our group chat this morning where, like, you could theoretically run into a world of there could be like 10 like one-loss teams this year that have conference championships or came close. I mean, hell, 4 of them could be in the SEC. All it would take would be Alabama beating Ole Miss and then winning the SEC championship if Ole Miss wins the rest of their games. I mean, then you're talking about 11-1 Ole Miss, 11-1 Tennessee, 12-1 Georgia, 12-1 Alabama, and like some of those schools aren't going to get to go. Like, that's the reality. If TCU drops a game and Oklahoma State beats them in the conference championship game, both those teams are going to be 12-1. And the sad reality is that maybe neither of those teams is going to get to go. Yeah. Same with USC and UCLA and everyone else. And we've listened for forever about why this thing shouldn't expand. And like this year has just been a major shut the hell up to all of those people. Like,
absolutely.
There's no doubt that 4 is the wrong number. And like, I don't really care. And like, I have a target audience in mind. Like, I don't care if you don't want group of 5 teams in. The reality is the 6th conference champion is going to get in. And if those teams go undefeated and earn their way in, why does it bother you that they're going to go play a road game against another Power 5 team? Who cares? If they're good enough to win the game, then they'll go win. And at that point, that means we probably witnessed a great football game. If they lose, they're out, and we still have 3 rounds left to go. Yeah. Nobody is bothered.
That's the difference.
Yeah, like, if you don't want to watch it, then don't watch it. There's like 3 other playoff games on at that point, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Walker, we're gonna do the other half of this conversation here in a second. Our friend Mo has to go, so I want to get any final thoughts he has before he takes off for the week. And I know you got Field Stormers coming this week, Mo, so I know you'll have plenty to say on it.
Yeah, 100%. I appreciate you for having me on, Jeff. I didn't realize what time it was. Just final thoughts. I'll give out my biggest loser, Penn State, for getting blown out, like essentially looking overrated. They're the biggest loser to me because every other team that lost that we would talk about was close games. Penn State absolutely got ran through. That was supposed to set the tone for the day, that game, and it was supposed to be a great matchup and all that, and they got the doors blown off of them. So they're my biggest loser. And the game I'm looking forward to next week is Syracuse and Clemson.
Oh, I like it.
Obviously, Ohio State and Iowa is going to be on TV, but Syracuse and Clemson, for the simple fact, man, I could only imagine what it'd be like if Syracuse won that game. I don't think so. I don't think they have a chance. And I'm glad. I think it's a road game. I'm glad it's not at Syracuse because they have the worst TV angles in America.
Oh, it's terrible.
Syracuse.
I love
their TV angles
when they play games.
I hate it, but yeah. So I appreciate you for having me on, though, Jeff.
Mo, you're the best, man. We'll make sure we promote our stuff at the end.
All right.
So Walker, when we jump to the losers here, the reason I said we'll have the other half of it is because I had the other side of it. Biggest loser is one of mine is the anti-playoff crowd. The whole time I'm watching it, I'm like, if you're telling me right now that you know who would win a matchup out of, like, even if you just whatever you want to take top 8 teams, top 12 teams, whatever mix, if anybody could tell me right now they think they know who would win between Ohio State, TCU, Tennessee, Tennessee, Oklahoma State, UCLA, Alabama. Like nobody honestly knows who would win these games.
No,
It
no
is
idea.
this every week has been just exactly what you said, a smack in the face to them. Now, if you're the anti-expansion crowd, now you're just stuck on it. Like that's just something you want to do. You have no reason for it, because what is happening, and this is what I've said all year, the only argument they have left that they bring up is the bowls. Like if you're stuck on the traditional Rose Bowl, if you're stuck on whatever, some of the traditional bowls, blah, blah, blah. But the fact of the matter is that these mid-season games like Tennessee, Alabama, that has become the new big game. Like that has replaced the bowl games, the early season games, Georgia, Oregon, that has replaced the bowl games. Like, I'm sorry for the Bulls. Like, I'm sorry that it's going to become a playoff format and they're going to have home stadiums. They'll find a way to make money. Tostitos will be fine. Everybody's going to be fine. It's just over. But like these games would, like, I have no problem with watching Alabama, Tennessee, and then knowing that both those teams still have a shot, because that was good football. Penn State eliminated themselves by playing so bad, and that's fine also. But I had the same thing, man. Like, give me 12. I just want to see the home fields. I just want to see it all. I don't see how anybody, and it's happening. It's not like we got to sit here and beg for it. I don't know what stance you have now to keep teams out of these playoffs. Why? If there's a first round blowout, it happens. It has nothing to do with the quality of the teams.
Yeah. Well, you know how Tostitos is going to make money when one of these teams wins their way into their bowl game, and then we just play it a week later because the playoff is cool and they're going to get more eyes that way. That's how they're going to make money. The same way.
It's really not that complicated.
No, it's really not. Like, I mean, they don't even lose. Like, I get that the Rose Bowl, like, well, another thing is too, I mean, I'm sure they're going to work these things out to where, like, if a Big Ten team wins, like, they'll send Ohio State to the Rose Bowl for tradition. Of course. Whatever. Like, I'm sure that these things have all been considered. And, at this point, it's just like, it's just the unwillingness to want to change. And you can hide behind quote unquote first round blowouts and all of this stuff and whatever it is that you want to hide behind. But the reality is these things were happening anyways. Like we've seen it over and over and over again. And when you move these games to campuses and basically turn them into, like, you actually create like hostile environments.
Oh my goodness.
Like, things are going to change. Environments change. Like, it creates more pressure on the home teams to have to play in front of their own fans. Like, it makes it difficult for road teams. It just increases, like, everything we love about college football is multiplied to the 10th degree. And how that is a bad thing.
I don't get it. You said it best.
The elitist thing. It's like I get that the elitist thing, it's like you want the big brands in, but if you want the big brands in, then how in the world are you trying to justify a 14 playoff where you leave like 5 of those out every single year?
Where you leave a whole conference out. You leave sometimes 2.
Yeah.
Sometimes you leave 2 conferences out. Like, how could
more
you
often
justify
than not
that?
at this point?
Almost all the time, yeah. Well, and you said it, the number one, the best thing I've heard as far as pro expansion, and you said it, if we expand it and the first round sucks, guess what? The next week's not the national championship game. The next week you get a whole round of playoffs and you don't have to worry about it. Like, there's no downside to it.
Yep. No, there's literally no downside.
That's the complaint about blowouts in the first round is worse when there's only 4 teams. Really sucks.
It's the perception of independent and group of 5 teams that pisses people off. And like, I'm like, but you and I know this because we pay so much attention and do so much research before the season. Like we've both picked up on the fact that independents and group of 5 teams are now scheduling with their non-conference games like legitimate programs. They're like,
we're a legit schedule.
We will come to you and play you because we want to go to that. Like, if we will come to you and beat you so we can go to that. And that's fine. If they want to do that and win their way in, then why? They don't get to come because they play in the American Conference? Like, are you like, what? Like, what are we doing? Like, if Cincinnati had gone undefeated and had a road win in Fayetteville in the opening week of the year and beat like an SEC West team that we thought was going to be really good while they were fully healthy, then like we would have looked back and been like, yeah, I mean, that's a good win. Like, what are we doing? Like, that team deserves to go. Like, they have pedigree at this point. And
then the whole thing is then one other argument is always like, well, if you let in 12, then everybody's going to complain about 13. Like, I don't care. That's also part of college football. Yes, we're going to complain about the 13th and 14th teams. That's also part of college football, which is also fun. So there again, you didn't even lose that. You didn't even lose the debate of it. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I'm still looking for the downside, except for like they just want to argue with Walker and Jeff. So we'll move on here because I've got a few more. So a couple of the lose. Mo covered Penn State. I can't really say much more except for basically my thing was, again, and I'm not saying, and everybody listen to me, I understand Penn State could upset Ohio State in a couple weeks, but it really doesn't matter now. They had the chance. They got ranked as high as they needed to. If they ran the table in the Big Ten East, they go to the playoffs just like everybody else, and they got absolutely manhandled, by another team in their division. It was just another time to where like Penn State looks like they're building up to like take that next step, and then they got beat down, whether it's Ohio State, whether it's Michigan. They failed at it again. And then you start looking at it like their deficiencies show up and you're like, okay, what's going on here? Like Clifford, I don't know, honestly, for the 6th year, look average, maybe below average. It's just like, can Franklin close that gap? I think you have a lot of questions if you're a Penn State fan of like, are we just going to do this forever? And I don't think that's what you sign up for if you're a Penn State fan.
Yeah. Well, and then you have to have the conversation about, is your program capped or is it Franklin's fault? Because like, is the reality
exactly
is the reality that like, I mean, we got into this conversation at a lower level with Nebraska, but like, are you at
the Nebraska was who came to mind?
And you're at the point now where it's like, maybe you fire Franklin and you hire another great coach, but is the reality that you're just always going to be the 3rd best team in the Big Ten, and every here and there you're going to have a chance to break through? And like, I think that's probably the reality for them right now. Like, I mean, they're not at a level where they can just consistently beat Michigan and Ohio State or even 50-50. Like, that's not where they're at. And you have to ask yourself the question, is that because it's who you are as a program now, or is it because James Franklin's not getting the job done? And that's a pretty tough question to answer, because USC was like hot and bothered about coming to get James Franklin. Like,
and I do think he's like, and I honestly don't know the answer, mainly because I am not smart enough on as far as like talent wise and stuff and who they bring in and how good they should be. I really wish I was better at that, but there's only so much time in the year. So I'm not one of these guys that can sit here and tell you like they have a bunch of 4 and 5 stars that aren't living up, or if they're living up to like, this is just as good as they can play. I had the question too, but if Penn State, I'm sure their fans have the question.
Yeah. And I'm glad that I'm not getting paid to make that decision.
Right. And again, if Mo said it, what the common theme this weekend was dynamic quarterbacks. I don't like, as far as like, I don't know what the NFL class is, what it is, but as far as dynamic quarterbacks on the field, there's a bunch of them and they all showed up this weekend. And if you don't have one, you're in the back seat. I mean, I don't know what else to say.
Penn State had to choose between Will Levis and Sean Clifford. Feels like they made the wrong decision.
I mean, but it seems like there you go. We talk about Franklin. I think everybody felt that at the time. I'm sure you felt it. I know I felt like I didn't see it, but I don't know what, you'd never know what goes on behind the scenes and blah, and all that stuff. I wouldn't pretend to know how it went down, but all I know is they got Sean Clifford and they don't have Will Levis. However that happened, it wasn't for the better. So I'll keep it in the same vein. This is an easy one. I didn't even want to say it, but I can't overlook it. Bad loss by Notre Dame. You know what I mean? They just trying to recover whatever part of the season they have. They maybe they had a chance to run the table, upset USC, and kind of save some face. So go to a decent bowl game and all these things, and they lose to Stanford, who Stanford hasn't really beaten anybody in, I believe, a couple years. I forget what the stats are, but it's been a run. So
I can give you a wild stat real quick.
I will let you do it, but I'll throw this Notre Dame. I just put another setback, and with the schedule they have going forward, it's not getting better. So now give me all the stats.
Marshall and Stanford have both only beaten one FBS team this year.
Oh my gosh!
And the one team and the one FBS team for both programs is Notre Dame. And both of them were in South Bend.
Yeah,
that's just
and they weren't shootouts. They weren't even shootouts. It's not like they're wasn't. Sometimes you can excuse these.
They lost 16-14.
That just
can't happen.
And I'll throw another loser out there that I didn't even write down. Preseason voters, get your shit together.
Yeah,
like,
no kidding, really.
No, we tried to. I mean, we told everybody Notre Dame wasn't the 5th best team in the country. Did I think they were this bad? No, but did I think they were 5th? No. So let's stop worrying.
We thought they were 8-4, like respectable team. Maybe
yeah.
not.
Yeah, I had them at 2. I had them at 2 losses and a tough schedule, and they haven't even played all their tough games yet. And so,
they got USC left. They've got USC left. So
yeah,
have fun with that one,
man. And if USC is hungry and they still have a chance to like get in, they're going to want to make a statement because whatever reason, and you can ask, High State fan, you can ask Cincinnati, like. For some reason, when you beat the Golden Domers, it counts a little bit more, no matter how bad they are. I think it's silly.
If Notre Dame doesn't get their shit together, USC may smell blood in the water and sense a chance to maybe make a statement.
Exactly. So speaking of USC, I'll let you go. I'll give you this loser, then I'll let you start the next loser. I put USC not because they played bad or anything else, strictly because they lost that direct path to the playoffs that they were on. And there's other teams that did that, but I think USC really had a I know going undefeated is not the easiest thing in the world, but I think if you're USC, you're like Mo said it best, man. We got Utah circled on the calendar. We get through that. Then we got the big game at UCLA. Then we know we're going to mash Notre Dame, but everybody's going to watch us mash Notre Dame. We're going to have so much momentum, and to lose on a 2-point conversion. They played a great game. I agree with you. I think they're actually a little better than I thought they were in the loss, a little tougher maybe. But I think that was a pretty tough loss for a team that had everything going their way. And I would say this, I don't say that about Alabama because I think Alabama's path is still a little more clear than USC.
Yeah, I think with USC, I mean, the one thing that they've got going for them that we hate to acknowledge, but it's true, is that they're still a Trojan on their helmet. And,
absolutely.
And if they get to 12, and if they get to 12-1, and you get the bump for beating Notre Dame just because they have gold helmets, and then also will get beating UCLA is a legitimately high quality win. You get to the conference title game and beat Oregon at a neutral site. All of a sudden, you've got all these good wins. So I mean, I think at 12-1, you go in with all those good wins, and you have a Trojan on your helmet. If it comes down to you and let's say TCU. Yeah, let's see who gets in.
That's a good point. That's good. I feel better about USC now.
Yeah, and the Trojan on the helmet matters. It just does. I mean, that's just
it sure does.
And so if they get to 12-1 and it comes down to them, and God, let's go here for hell's sakes. If it comes down to them and Ole Miss, USC is going every time, no question.
Probably. Yeah, they're going to look at and they're going to say.
Yeah, I mean,
and they're going to say USC, and they're going to come off a Notre Dame win, and they're going to have Caleb Williams, and they are going to have the benefit of the doubt. You're right. I'm going to take them off my losers. USC, you're fine. Walker, we got more losers for us?
Off the radar loser for you that I feel like we haven't talked, or I know we haven't talked about. One of the biggest losers of the week, James Madison.
Okay.
Make the jump from FCS to FBS. First team in history to become a top 25 team after making that jump in your first season. And your first game as a top 25 team, you're a massive favorite against Georgia Southern and you lose. It's a loser because not necessarily because you lose the undefeated season and what maybe potentially was down the road. They weren't making the playoff, but maybe a New Year's Six game as a G5 team or something like that.
Yeah.
It just stinks for that program because you come and there's all of this positive emotion, and then you finally get to where you want to be, and you get to, okay, here's our big game. We're a top 25 team. I think they play it on one of the big ESPN networks because even ESPN was like, this is the little engine that could, let's pay some attention to them. And then you play a triple option team or a modernized triple option team in Georgia Southern, and you lose in a shootout. And that just, I think they'll fall out of the polls now, and we'll kind of forget that James Madison.
Yeah, they can't get back in them.
No, and it's we'll forget that it was kind of a thing now, and that stinks because, I'm not saying that I was we should have been ranking them higher, but you get what I'm saying.
I mean, think about it. It didn't. I mean, not that the story still wasn't great and all that, but we haven't talked about Appalachian State in a few weeks. You know what I mean? It does fade quickly when you're these schools. And it doesn't. doesn't take away from their players or the run they're on or whatever, but you when you have that opportunity, that's what kind of the theme of the weekend was. You have that opportunity, and I won't say you blow it, but it doesn't happen for you.
Yeah.
And you just like just whether it's Penn State, whether at that part, whether it's James Madison, Oklahoma State, I'm sure they feel terrible. Like you're like we're right there where we want to be, whatever that goal is. And then when it slips away, man, it's got to be murderous. That's to where Alabama's like, we've been here before. We know how to handle this. We're going to move forward. USC, like you say, everything you said, it's kind of in the same boat. But and some of these teams, like that's it. You know what I mean? Like it's it feels like we slipped opportunity away. And I've got one more, and I'll justify it. Loser that didn't even play this weekend, and I'll say Ohio State, and here's why. Because I'm an Ohio State fan, I think about these things very closely. I watch very closely. Well, here's what happened this weekend. Their rival proved that they're awesome, that they're a legit contender. So, at the end of the season, you've basically that same situation you had last year, and a team that just, beat you up and sent you home, last year, and that the weather, is not going to be any better in Columbus possibly, and all these things. So you got that. You're sitting there watching. You can't do anything about it. You're watching your rival. And then now you have the worst resume out of the contenders that there is. Like you don't have anybody on your schedule that's a good win anymore. Nobody's ranked. Notre Dame, the one that you might be hinging on, it has been wiped off the map. I guess Wisconsin's the second best team you played, and they're not good. So like outside of like what you look like while you're playing, you don't have any argument to be the best team. All these teams have a better argument than you. So now you have one shot. You go undefeated. That's it. You have one shot. You don't have any fallback on that. And so like you're not like as these other teams have played these great games and look great, you got Iowa coming up. You can't prove anything, So you haven't been battle tested, and then you've got the weather coming and all these things. So I think if you're Ohio State, like you're kind of like now like everything is based on we look really pretty. Like that's just, and it's not their fault. They've taken care of business, and they look great, but there is no argument of how good they actually are against a better team. So I don't think it was a great week for the Buckeyes.
Yeah, well, and it's not even their fault. Like, it's not like it's not even like you look at them and be like, oh, you scheduled soft. No, man. Like we scheduled Notre Dame like in the first game of the season. It's like, no, that's I'm sure 5 years ago when they scheduled that was just an awesome game that we were like, oh, that's gonna rock. But it just didn't. And that sometimes it breaks that way. That's how the cookie crumbles every now and then. And so all you can do now is win. And if Ryan Day is the coach that I think Ohio State would like him to be, then when Michigan comes and you're in a revenge spot against the Wolverines, you win that game, and you don't leave any question who the better team is.
Yeah,
you may
only believe me, nobody. Yeah, their path is straight, but they don't have any there's no fallback now.
No,
and that's fine.
That's fine. It's just if you are going to be in the fallback for them is that they have the Buckeyes on
100%. That's I totally agree with that. Yeah. I totally agree with that.
And so but if they to me, it's one of those things where it's a little bit disconcerting. Like you sit there and you're like, but if your team and your program is what you want it to be and it's in the right place, then you beat Michigan comfortably.
Oh yeah, and it won't matter
because that's what you owe them, and then it doesn't matter, and you go, and once you're in, then nothing.
I totally agree.
Everybody's 0-0 at that point.
Yeah, it's just that you're going to be like, as these other teams are beating up on each other, like especially if I'm Tennessee, I'm like, how dare you put Ohio State above me? So now you've got this unbeknownst to you, you've got this target on your back that you didn't create. All you're doing is going out there and playing bad teams and just smashing them. And these other teams develop this chip on their shoulder, which is, when it gets to playoff time, if they would get there as an advance. So, like, not a horrible weekend, but just as far as having a bye week, everything didn't break their way. But that being said, nobody's going to feel sorry for the Buckeyes. So.
No, I don't feel sorry for them.
No. That's all right.
I've got to play LSU this week. I don't feel for you.
I know. I forgot I had another winner on there. Ole Miss, and the reason being, you're going to be on the show, but I do watch them closely. But honestly, their path got a little better. I mean, Alabama took the loss. They've everything's in front of them now, and if they play as good as they are, they got LSU coming up, which we talked about these brand names. Like LSU's a good football team, but they also, we talked about it. They had that tiger on the field. So when you beat them, it means a little bit more. So that's a team that has they kind of switch with USC. Like Ole Miss is like, okay, this is a hard mission, but we know what we can accomplish now. If we keep to it. So I thought
steal
good week
from someone I listened to this morning. It's all on the racket for them. Like it's all
yeah,
right
that's
there.
what I mean. Yep.
Yeah, if you go and you win out, then you're going to Atlanta, and you don't care who you play at that point because you're 12.
It does help when. Yep.
And quite frankly, your spot is probably safe at that point. Like we won't go there because I don't want to think about being 12-0.
I don't want to jinx anything. I'm just saying.
No, I want to think about trying to get to 8-0. And
yeah.
But if you for some reason like went down that road, like if you can get to there, if you can control what you can control and you can get to that point, then you'll have a chance at the end of the year. And that's all you can ask for.
The path is there. That's what I mean. That's all you can ask for. So it's another team that like obviously it feels good. And UCLA would be in that category too. Like UCLA's got to feel good about where they're at also. They have everything in front of them. For that matter, the whole Pac-12. We could talk about that, but we have. Really. So we'll move on here. That was the losers. Let's talk about oops. I need a producer. Let's go with what did we learn? Then we'll do the games to watch. So what did we learn is pretty quick. I'll give you mine. My biggest takeaway. Every conference has a legit national title contender. All 5 conferences have one. I think ACC's only got one, but I still think they have one. I think the Pac-12's got a couple. I think the Big 12's got a couple. And of course, we know the Big 10 and the SEC have a few each. Well, a couple. Big 10's down to a couple. SEC's got, I don't know, maybe 4. I'm being totally honest. They got 4, right? But I love it that like I love it that we haven't like last year we'd eliminated the ACC pretty early because Clemson had a rough start. So like that wasn't a factor. Big 10, I mean, Michigan wound up, taking over, but Ohio State lost early. So that's this year there's a lot of contenders in every conference. It kind of goes back to like, let's let more teams play for this thing. But that was my biggest takeaway. I was like, wow, there's like anybody could win this thing. And I really believe that right now.
Yeah, I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, I think mine was going to be like kind of just the depth of the sport right now, which is something we haven't had in a while. I mean, maybe 15 years or so. And so it's just the depth of the sport right now and the number of teams that are playing at an incredibly high level, and teams that don't have a chance to win the national championship that can still, they have enough to steal a phrase from somebody. They have enough ass to whip ass. So
yeah.
Texas, 2 losses probably almost certainly does not have a chance to get into the playoff. No matter what they do from here on out, there's just too many teams that have no losses or 1 loss.
Yeah. But nobody wants to play them.
Nope. And then nobody wants to line up across from them. Utah's the same way. Nobody wants to line up and play that team right now.
Right.
And so, you've got a bunch of those types of teams. The depth of the sport is something that we haven't seen in a really long time. So, and that's something we should celebrate.
Yeah, and I said it a lot of times, and a lot of it is due to this. We won't go down this rabbit hole. That'll be something you guys can do on Field Stormers. But like a lot of it is the transfer portal, because when you start, I've said it for years, you start spreading out these quarterbacks, all of a sudden, like it puts more. Even Martinez going to Kansas State, huge difference. I mean, obviously Williams, Ewers going back to Texas made them relevant immediately as to where he could be stuck fighting with Stroud, over the starting spot. Now you got 2 good teams. Like the transfer portal has affected the depth of college football, and so far, I think in a really good way.
Yeah, I mean, Adrian Martinez is playing on a playoff contender right now. I mean,
it's amazing. What a great story for him.
Yeah, I mean, they're 5-1. Yeah, did they lose to Tulane? Sure. If they went out, nobody cares. If they went out,
exactly.
Well, nobody cares.
Yeah, it's awesome.
You're still getting in.
So that's what we learned. Let's talk about week 4. It still says week 4. I apologize. You know what? I'll just fix that real quick. You guys are going to see some editing in progress. Week 8. games to watch. It's not near the schedule last week, but it's still, I mean, you're always going to have good teams, and we don't even know what the good games are going to be. There's going to be an upset. There's going to be, a surprise team, but these are just some of the ones that, like, if you're watching a game this week, you want to learn something. We'll save yours for, I know we'll save one of yours for last.
I don't even know that I want to talk about it, to be honest, but we all know it has to go on the list. Like,
I'll bring it up last, and you can act like it's not going to happen. I think a big one, I'll start with for me, just because I'm so invested in the Big 12 this year, I'm going with Texas, Oklahoma State. I want to see, you brought it up before, I think before the show, maybe later on, but I want to see if Oklahoma State bounces back, or I want to see, I'm kind of dug in on my Texas take of, like, they're not dead. So personally, I watched them a little closer. So I think whoever wins this game, especially if it's, as long as not convincing, doesn't have to be a blowout, but, like, if they look like the better team, whoever wins this, I think is still alive. Whether it's if it's Texas, obviously it's a much more difficult road. If it's Oklahoma State,
it's a loser leaves town game.
Yeah, the loser's done. Let's put it that way. And I think they're comparable. I think this is a tough. I want to see Ewers in this situation. This is I guess it's one of these. It's a really big game considering he was out at the end of the Alabama game. So I'd like to see him get a shot and finish. I see Oklahoma State, see how they bounce back. They've been pretty good at that. So definitely got my eye on Texas, Oklahoma State.
Well, and how does Texas play away from Austin? This is their second road game, and their first road game was in Lubbock, and they lost. Like, so right. How does Texas, like, Texas has to take a step here and prove that they're a nationally relevant team by playing both at home and away from home. And, they played really well in Dallas, but again, that's a neutral site where, probably 60% of the stadium was filled with orange.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I want to see them go into a hostile environment and play against a different type of orange.
Yeah.
And
this is also an opportunity. I'll throw it out there as far as the Jeff's agenda. If they look great, then we can really start having some interesting conversations until it doesn't matter anymore. But interesting conversation if they look great against Oklahoma State.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, 100%. Like, it's exactly right. I mean, if Texas wins, then they're going to get another couple weeks of where we're going to talk about Texas and are they still alive? And the problem, they'll go into the bye week after this, and then they'll have just 2 weeks of consecutive massive tests. I mean, they'll come out of the bye and go to Manhattan, Kansas, which is sneaky, brutal place to play. Like, so many people have gone into Manhattan and fallen over the years.
Yeah, there's an energy about that place that is just different.
I totally agree with that. The Purple Cats play. It's a different level of Kansas State football when you go there. Bill Snyder did it. Chris Kleiman has continued it. I mean, it's a really tough place to play, and then you have to come back after dealing with that, and TCU waiting in your building, ready to go, just sitting there, ready to roll. They're coming to Austin, and we're gonna find out right in those 2 weeks exactly what Texas has got. TCU's at home the week before against a team that's probably kind of a bottom feeder in their conference. So, potentially get some guys out of a game early and get ready for Texas. And so Texas is going to answer some questions.
Oh, absolutely. The 12 o'clock slate's not great. I mean, I'll be watching OSU, Iowa. Hopefully I can take a nap. I don't know that that's going to be the case, but hopefully I can. The other 12 o'clock game.
Every time Iowa possesses the ball.
Oh man. I don't even bother watching them, so I really don't even know what to expect. But weird things happen when we play that team. But I definitely, here's what I'll say is, like, if Iowa State was going to play really good, I would enjoy that, because Iowa ruined. I was actually watching them in Vegas, the upset. It was rough. Made some money off of it because I was so angry, but that's beside the point. The other 12 o'clock game. This is a huge game on paper, but I don't think anybody thinks that it is Syracuse Clemson's very interesting. I think everybody thinks Clemson's going to win, but it's 5 versus 14. So it's one of those, like, I try to give the respect to the ranking, and I don't want to, we talk about the helmet because it's Syracuse. I think everybody's like, kind of roll their eyes or whatever.
Right.
I don't know what to make of this. I haven't watched enough of both teams. I like Clemson a lot. I think they're better than most people think they are. I don't know about Syracuse. Tell me something about this game that I don't know.
Garrett Schrader is going to be one of the sneakier, more fun quarterbacks that you've watched all year. Some things he does on the field are mind-numbingly dumb. You just kind of like he takes some of the worst sacks in college football, like the ones where you run around and lose 15 when you could have lost 5.
Okay.
But then some of the throws he makes later on, the drive he had against Purdue in the Carrier Dome where they got the ball back with 25 seconds left and he marches them down, just boom, 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 corner out over the shoulder in the breadbasket touchdown, win the game. So I mean, like they've shown up, and Sean Tucker's, I think maybe the career rushing yard leader at Syracuse now.
Yeah.
And so you've got that. And also you and I have watched the sport long enough to know this game always gets weird.
It gets really weird.
Syracuse Clemson always gets weird. It was the Trevor Lawrence concussion game. Yep. And then it was the year after Clemson had gone to the Carrier Dome on like a Thursday night and gotten beat. This game always gets weird. So I'm not saying Clemson's going to get beat. I'm not saying Syracuse is going to win, but this game is always sneaky close. And Syracuse
does get weird.
It always gets weird. And for everything that Dino Babers doesn't do well, he always has his team up for big games. They always
seems to be
relatively well. So he's going to have them ready. They've got like there's a path to victory for them. Like it exists. Like there's definitely a path to victory. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. For me, it's a game that goes on TV too. Like you put it there just so you can see it, but it has the potential where it's like one where everybody's kind of crowded around, almost like what's going on kind of later on. So
I agree. So what's some other ones you got?
In the 11 o'clock slate, really nothing. I mean, if we're being honest, Kansas Baylor, I think, in Waco, that's the only other game. And for me personally, I'm going to watch Cincy SMU probably because go Mustangs.
Sure.
Just some personal affiliation there. But then 2:30 is where we get serious. That's where we get down to the nitty gritty.
And by 2:30, everybody, Walker lives in Central Time. We're talking about 3:30/2:30 slate. Everybody doesn't think we don't know.
Yeah, 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central. Texas, Oklahoma State. We talked about that. Yeah. UCLA, Oregon, and Eugene. College Game Day is going to be there for the first time.
That's huge.
Yeah, they're going to be there for the first time since 2018. It's going to be 54 degrees and raining. It's going to be the type of game where you really find out what you've got from a team standpoint, from Chip's bunch at UCLA, from Oregon's bunch. I think it's going to be high scoring. It's going to be a lot of fun. Like I think it's a game.
And I haven't got a chance to watch UCLA yet, like really watch them. So I'm really looking forward to this game. Yeah, I like when I can focus on one of these because
really veteran quarterback in DTR who has that system down. He's 29 years old now, I'm sure, been there forever. But and then Charbonnet is still there, the Michigan transfer. He's still running the football, still toting the load. And then they've got some dudes on the perimeter. So it's going to be a really fun game, a really interesting game. Oregon's been just taking care of business every single week since that Georgia defeat. It feels like it was a long time ago now. Probably it was 5 weeks ago, and it feels like it was 8 weeks ago. UCLA is coming off the bye week, off the back-to-back big wins, where Washington was technically a top 15 coming in, which shame on us.
My bad.
Shame on us for that one. Like
I felt hook, line, and sinker.
I know, but then the Utah win. Like the Utah win is actually now more legitimized than it was in the moment. And I think in the moment we all kind of knew. I have to quit rambling. We have to go to CBS. We've got to go to CBS. Ole Miss is going to Ridge. We've got to go there. It's in the time window. Ole Miss is 7-0. You could argue that they have not played anyone to this point that probably should have tested them. Kentucky was a decent team, but that's still a game you should win. You can argue that they're untested, and this is going to be their biggest test. They're one of the most polarizing teams in the country right now, I think, from a legitimacy standpoint as to what people really think about them. I think some people think they haven't played anybody and they may lose 4 of their last 5. I think some guys that are heavy into the analytic stuff think that Ole Miss looks like the best team in the country for 20 minutes at a time and then forgets how to play football for the next 20. So
that's fair.
They lack consistency. The flashes and the upside looks like a team that can't be stopped and like a team that nobody wants to play. The valleys look like a team that probably goes 4-8. So where are they really? How do they stack up to this upper echelon of the SEC? We're fixing to find out. LSU's probably not the upper echelon, but Death Valley is worth at least a touchdown in games like this. It's going to be raucous because at this point, Ole Miss is a brand and Ole Miss is a program, and Lane Kiffin as a head coach that's a program now that when they come to your town, you sell the stadium out and you get there and you try to beat them. And
Yep.
as fans, you go try to beat them. Like we know the team is going to try to beat them,
right?
But as fans, you're going, and it's like we are going to make this environment as raucous and loud as possible because Ole Miss is here this week.
Yep.
And it's one of the biggest games of our season. That's
you're going to get a good effort from them. True. And LSU is kind of the same way. It's like there's times where I'm like, okay, this is turning around, and then I shake my head and I'm like, no, something's missing here. I kind of fell off, from watching the last few weeks. I know they've gotten better, but
and what I'll say about this is the difference between Ole Miss and LSU is that when games get tight and they find those valleys, Ole Miss has found ways to win.
And that's absolutely
most important. And that's one of the most important traits while you're seeking consistency and searching for what you are, because a lot of people will consider what Lane's doing an experiment in real time. He took 28 transfers last year. 28.
Oh, yeah.
And this is an experiment in real time as to how you can build a team on the fly and what it's going to look like. And so, we're about to find out because they've been searching for consistency, and he said it. I mean, he said, listen, there's times where we look like we can, achieve anything that we want to achieve and that there's nothing off the table. And there's times where I just don't even recognize my team. So you got 5 days to figure it out.
This is like I said, they're playing a huge brand, a good team, in a raucous place. They get all kinds of credit, for the victory if they can pull it off, which and vice versa, LSU will get. This is a better game than worrying about the number beside the name. That's what I'll say. I get frustrated with those a lot. Like this is a better game than Clemson Syracuse. That's what I'm getting at.
Well, and LSU is one of the 25 best teams in the country. I don't care what your silly little AP poll says.
100%,
25 best teams in the country. We know that. Everybody knows that. But they've lost games, so we can't put them there. We know that. So, it's a massive, massive, massive test. But if you are going to take the next step as a program, which for Ole Miss, that's taking the step from 10-2 to 11-1, 12-0. This is a game that you win.
Which is crazy to think that that's the step, but that's where they're at, which is awesome. But it's so weird to be like, oh my gosh, 10-2 was good enough, but now it's not. That's just part of being a good team. It's college football is fascinating that way. So, another one I'll watch in the nightcap. I got to see how Alabama responds. You always got to watch the game after a tough loss, how they respond. Mississippi State I really kind of took a step back last week. I was kind of high on them and some of the fun stuff they were doing, and it felt like they didn't really deliver what I wanted. But I still got to know how Alabama steps up, especially with a defense that just gave up almost 600 yards. It's worth noting.
Well, and at some point, if you're Mississippi State and you want to take the next step from 6-6, 7-5 to, hey, we're going to be a factor in this division, you have to play well away from home. They pooped their pants when they went to Baton Rouge as a favorite. They pooped their pants when they went to Kentucky as a favorite, and now you have to go to Tuscaloosa at night to play an Alabama team that is going to be probably all systems go on Saturday, I had to guess. So but we talked about this earlier. I think Alabama's more gettable than been in years past. That secondary is not great, and the last offense you want to see when your secondary is not great, you do not want to see an air raid coming to your town with a quarterback who has just mastered that offense.
Yeah, he's lighting it up. And if they stumble in this, even if they win and stumble, people are going to notice because they've got the benefit of the doubt about this offense or this defense all season. And all of a sudden we're going to be like, wait a minute, if they give up another, I don't know, 45 points or 40 points or whatever, people are really going to start scrutinizing them and asking questions. And that's just how it goes. I mean, again, they're in all right shape, but they still need to kind of get it back, a statement, to regroup. And then another good one, you talked about it, Kansas State TCU. Late in the evening, Walker's Horned Frogs versus Martinez and Kansas State. You got to know, like
what a great game! So much purple, so much purple.
Oh my goodness! Game. I hope TCU brings out. They got some great alternate uniforms. I hope they bring out something nasty. This is just an interesting game to me. I think TCU wins, but how they win, how they look, how they rebound after 2 overtimes, and can Kansas State, like you said, keep the kind of keep it going and the momentum and everything. This is one of those just like when it's over, But this is also one of those, if TCU slips up, then we're like, okay, now what do we do with the Big 12? The Big 12's a mess now. They're cannibalizing themselves again. Nobody's going to make the playoffs, so it's kind of a big game for the Big 12. They want to root for TCU to keep this thing going.
No, I think they're telling the officials with 50-50 calls, hey, like if TCU's got to call, like if you need to throw a flag, throw one on Kansas State. Like we need TCU to win the game. Like
yes, exactly. I mean, I think it's that.
Even those types of narratives, then that's the type of thing
this would be the game for it, 100%. And we need TCU to go in Texas to play as good as they can. We
need game day in Austin because Texas is still undefeated with Ewers healthy, and TCU is undefeated. Like that's what we need for this conference. We need those headlines. So Kansas State, if you mess it up, no pressure, but you're out of the conference. Something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Something like that. So,
you're gonna replace somebody in the Pac-12. You're done.
Yeah, and this is the big test for TCU: is how do you respond now after winning the biggest game on your schedule to this point?
Yeah.
How do you? And I think to an extent we've answered that, but Oklahoma's not very good. SMU's not very good. Like those are the realities. They were big games when they played them. Now it looks like they're not. You give them credit for getting up in the spot, but now it's over. Kansas was a big spot. Jalen Daniels got hurt. Maybe TCU doesn't win that game if he doesn't. We don't know. You won the game. You get credit for it.
Yep.
You beat Oklahoma State healthy. That's really your first massive win where start to finish you played a team who played their best game with everybody healthy and won. How do you follow it up? Because championship programs and teams who are contenders for the college football playoff in spots like this, they see another good team coming into your stadium and they say, last week's over, we're going to go out and we're going to punish this team just like we punished the last one. And we're going to get another big win and stack on this resume. And then we're going to eventually get to Austin and we're going to figure it out. So
yeah, especially when like some of the teams that they're looking against, like they're looking at if those like Ohio State's not, they're playing Iowa, so they can't really do anything. Whereas TCU can be like, yeah, we beat another, like they're going to have building that resume. It's really important right now. Really, really important, especially when you're not one of the blue bloods.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it is. And so, Sonny Dykes, I think too, like right now, I think that your 3 national coach of the year front runners, actually, I'll go 4. It's Heupel, Lance Leipold at Kansas, Sonny Dykes, and I forgot the 4th one. Oh, Dino Babers. I think right now.
I can't argue with any of that.
Yeah. No, because of the programs that they are currently at and their records.
Yeah, they've actually done the coaching job. Yeah, I think it's easy to go with Heupel right now, but I think I would probably lean towards Leipold to Kansas just right now. But there's no wrong answer there. It's been a really really
just because I'm biased, just because at this point I'm biased. I'd give it to Dykes. I mean, you walk in and you try to convince your best offensive player to stay, and he still says deuces and hops in the portal and goes to Ole Miss, and then you just turn around and go undefeated anyways. So
yeah, fair point.
Yeah. So I think that's it for the slate next week. I think we got
all right, man. It's really not too bad now that we've talked it out. I'm kind of excited about it. I've got to work this weekend, so it kind of helps that it's a slightly down. I don't have to miss any ginormous games, but something exciting is going to happen that we don't even know of yet. It's going to be awesome. So,
someone in that top 12-ish range is going to be on the ropes in the 4th, and we'll find the TV then.
Oh, it's gonna be crazy. Yeah, Twitter will be a buzz, and we'll be talking back and forth. Everybody watching it. It's going. Somebody unexpected is losing this weekend. Like that. That's for sure. I hope it's not my Buckeyes, but we've.
I think they're gonna be all right. I think they're gonna be all right.
They need to be though. They've got to, like, after everybody got to see the show last Saturday, the Buckeyes have to come out and look great to remind everybody, like, hey, we took 13 days off, but we're still good.
I would be absolutely floored if Iowa scored more than one touchdown.
Well, I hope you're right, man. I like your thought process. So that's it, everybody. That's for this week. Winners and losers. It was a great weekend in college football. I appreciate Walker and Mo coming on. Go to Off the Ball Network. Check out their stuff. Go find Walker Bailey on Twitter. You got your Substack. You got that going. Do all that. He's done a great job. And then him and Mo are doing a great job with Field Stormers, which is the Off the Ball Network. College football podcast that they do every week. It's been a lot of fun. I've had a chance to be on it. It's awesome. So you'll get even more of this. They'll look more into the next games. They'll look at. I'm sure that you guys will dig into a little more of everything than we just touched on. But there was a lot of stuff to touch on this week. So Walker, thanks again for being on, man. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely, anytime.
All right, we'll see everybody. That was Jeff Needs Sports, and we're out of here.